Hi, this is Robin Hood of Sherwood Forest by Ann McGovern, Chapter 8. How Robin Hood Saves a Wedding. Friar Tuck had never been happier than he was in the greenwood, serving the needs of Robin Hood and his outlaw band. Oftentimes, guests were brought to dine at Sherwood Forest, much against their will. More often than not, the guest was a rich man who made his money from robbing poor folk, and so he was made to pay dearly for his supper. At these times, Friar Tuck would speak a few holy words, as the man was forced to empty his purse into the hands of Robin Hood. And when a new man joined Robin Hood's ranks, the jolly friar would hear the vows that each gave, heart and soul, pledging to be faithful to the code of the outlaw band. Before long, there arose a strange circumstance in which Friar Tuck played a noble role, and of this we now shall hear. One fine morning, Little John and Midge, the miller's son, were ambling down the high road in search of a guest to bring back to the forest. "The goose will soon be browning on the fire," said Midge, "and as everyone knows, a fine goose dinner is worth much. 10 gold pieces, I'd say." "10!" roared Little John. "Well, thou knows that there are only a few coins remaining in our coffers. Most of our gold went to help the good widow Smith and her poor babies. I'd say a fine goose dinner should fetch a price of 50 gold coins. So let us be ever watchful that there be money in the purse of whoever we ask to dine at our board this night." And so the two merry men walked on, and though they met all manner of good yeomen and honest farmers, no rich nobleman or fat abbot did they see to bring back to their master. When they turned the bend in the road, they suddenly heard a song so glorious it would shame the sweetest songbirds in the forest. So wild and wondrous was its tone, and so pure its sound, that the two friends stopped in awe to listen. Presently the singer came round the bend. The sight of him was as wondrous as the song he sang. Atop his golden curls perched a hat of green, with a tall peacock plume stuck in the center. His coat was half red, half yellow, all tied with gay ribbons, streaming this way and that. In his hands he carried a harp made of polished wood, with precious stones set about the edges. The song he sang was of true love and of a wedding to take place tomorrow. Although the two brawny outlaws, and Little John especially, were not men to be moved by stories of love and wedded bliss, they stood breathless as the minstrel strolled by. "Alas," Midge said when the stranger had passed and his song could no longer be heard, "were the purses of minstrels as filled with gold as their voices, this one would have been a likely guest at our board this night." Little John snapped his finger, saying, "Ah, my head must be made of blocks, and fairly may you call me blockhead. We should have bid him come, albeit he has no purse. Think how our master would have loved his songs. But 'tis too late now, so let us do our duty and be done with it." All that day and well into the evening they searched, but to no avail. "There is naught to do but return home," said Little John, when the first star brightened the night sky. As they were about to turn off the high road, they heard a sobbing sound, and looking further, found the source. There on the ground, weeping rivers, was the same minstrel they had heard in the sunlit hours. But as before he had been full of joy, now everything about him spoke of sorrow. His golden curls were tangled, his jaunty hat was nowhere to be seen, his gay ribbons were torn and dirty, and his harp had been carelessly thrown to one side. "Ah, what have we here?" spoke Little John. "Something has happened to our merry songbird to clip his wings." Hearing voices, the sorry lad sprang up. "What do you want with me? If it's money, none do I have. If it's song, never will I sing again, for my voice is as broken as my heart. If you be foe, take my harp, for I want it not. If you be friend, leave me be. All I wish for is death." "Foes we are not," said Little John, "and as friends, never can we pass by one who needs our aid." "Speak not of death," said Midge, "for we have a friar who will fast come running to say a prayer over thee." At this, a faint smile appeared on the stranger's pale lips. "In the greenwood dwell hundreds more of Robin Hood's men who are at thy service. This very moment they are making a feast." And Little John licked his lips at the thought. "After you have tasted our fat goose and drunk our brown ale to wash the tears from thy throat, maybe you will sing a happier tune." "Very well," said the stranger. "I will go with you, for truly I care not where I go. And now that I know thy master is Robin Hood, do I have a choice whether to go with thee or stay where I am?" The merry men were already assembled when Little John and Midge brought their guest to the wide oak tree to meet Robin. One glance at the saddened lad told Robin that this was no rich man whose purse he could lighten, but a friend in trouble. "Tell us thy name, good friend, and thy purpose," said Robin Hood gently. "Allan a Dale is my name, and as to my purpose, I was—" And at this his voice broke and tears filled his eyes. "I know thy name as a famous singer of songs," said Robin. "As for thy purpose, it is no matter for the moment. After you are well fed and well rested, maybe thy story will come easier." Then all the men looked to their dinner. So joyous were their stories and jests that Robin Hood saw Allan a Dale's eyes begin to brighten. "Now," said Robin, when the bones of the goose were bare and the barrel of ale stood empty, "any guest who dines with Robin Hood must pay. Thou knowest well that I have nothing save this harp, and thou art welcome to it," said Allan a Dale. "Nay," said Robin Hood, "thou speakst falsely. Thou hast the voice of a nightingale, and a story to tell. Sing thy story then, that is thy payment." Allan looked at the 50 of brawny men about him. He knew of what they did to men who defied them. Indeed, he had sung their songs in happier days past. So now he picked up his harp and sadly started strumming upon it. Then softly his song began. It told of a happy minstrel in love with fair Ellen, the most beautiful maiden in all of England. It told that, though they were poor, their love and happiness would be riches aplenty. It sung of wedding plans the minstrel and his lady had made, and how the minstrel had come to the town where she dwelt. There he was to claim her as his bride and take her to the church the following day, where they were to be wed. And the song continued. When the minstrel came to town, he was told that fair Ellen was to be wed, yes, the very next day, but not to him. A rich and powerful knight wanted Ellen for his wife, and this knight had persuaded Ellen's father that no better match could be made. Ellen was a good and dutiful daughter, and dared not disobey her father's wishes, though the knight was elderly and poor in health, and the only man she could ever love was the minstrel. And so, Ellen sang, "Love is lost to the poor, and only death awaits." When the last note was sung, not a whisper could be heard, and even the strongest men there had tears in their eyes. "Are you not the same minstrel the song sings of?" questioned Robin softly. "Yes," murmured Allan a Dale, and his tears started afresh. "Tomorrow would have been my happiest day. Instead, it'll be my day of mourning, for when Ellen is wed to another, she will be lost to me forever." "No," cried Robin. "Men may speak of how we rob from the rich and give to the poor, but in this instance we will not be robbing anyone. We shall only be taking what in truth is already thine. There shall be a wedding tomorrow, never fear. But there may be a few surprised faces in the church. Listen well to my plan." As Robin spoke, Allan's spirits lifted. His sorrow changed to joy, and when Robin finished, Allan began leading the men in gay songs. Had any good folk been stirring on the high road the next morning, they would have witnessed a strange sight indeed. In the lead was Robin Hood, gaily dressed as a minstrel. Behind him came fat Friar Tuck, huge Little John, and a handsome youth singing ballad after ballad in a voice that would have melted the hardest stone. Then followed a score of stout men in Lincoln green, polished bows slung over their shoulders and quivers filled with sharp arrows. Past rolling fields and up and down little hills they walked, on their way to the town of Plytree, where the wedding was to take place. When the steeple of the church came into view, Robin halted. "Friar Tuck," he said, "by the best cunning thou knows, get yourself into the church and hide there till you hear my signal. Little John, take Allan a Dale and keep him nearby. Keep him from bursting into song until the time is ripe. And all the rest of you good men, hide among the trees till you are called for." And so they did as Robin Hood bade them do. Robin Hood watched Friar Tuck knock upon the door of a church. A moment later the door opened, and Robin could hear the friar telling an ancient churchman that he was a wandering holy man wishing for a holy place to pray. Then the door closed behind him. The first part of the plan had worked. Robin Hood watched the road closely, and very soon he saw what he had been waiting for. A stately procession was slowly making its way down the high road. To Robin's eyes, it looked more like a funeral procession than a gathering assembled for a wedding. Where was the happy faces, the spirited talk? Even the slow-gaited horses seemed in no hurry to get to the church. As they came closer, Robin Hood spied Ellen. Lovely she was, as Allan a Dale had said she would be. But surely this was no bride. Her cheeks were pale as sand, her lips quivered, and her lovely white hands were clenched tightly about the reins of her golden mare. And the man riding beside her, could this really be the bridegroom of such a lovely maiden? Tall and thin he was, with a sour look about him, like a spoiled apple. What little hair he had was gray, and it seemed to Ellen that he was twice the age. And it seemed to Robin that he was twice the age of the lovely Ellen. The bishop, dressed in splendid robes, gave great yawns as though he would rather be spending the day in sleeping. As for the rest of the company, there was not one smile among them. When they reached the church, Robin sprang from his hiding place so all could see him. He turned 3 somersaults and landed upright in front of the bishop. Such a merry sight was he, so handsome and gaily clad, that even the old knight began to smile. Prancing about the bishop, Robin sang, "Ho for a pretty ballad, ho for a tender song, with me at thy wedding naught can go wrong." "What is thy business?" asked the bishop impatiently. "Out of our way, lad. We have important matters to perform inside." "My business is happiness," Robin laughed. "I am a minstrel at thy service. Folk say that when I pluck my harp and sing my songs on a wedding day, the bride will love the man she marries until the day she dies." "Love the man she marries, eh?" said the bishop to himself. "Methinks there is need of thy service here this day. For the climate of this wedding is wintry, though the day be full summer." To Robin he asked, "What is thy price?" "A purse of gold, my lord," said Robin, "but I will wait for it till the bride and groom are wed." "Pay it, I pray," cried out a sorrowful-looking man standing close to the bride. Robin quickly guessed that he was Ellen's father, for the man had such a saddened and guilty look upon his face, it seemed as if he were already sorry for the match he had forced upon his daughter. "Enough of this," said the bishop. "Let us begin." And he was the first to enter the church. Looking helplessly about, the unhappy bride followed slowly, and all the company filed in. Inside, the bishop gruffly gave orders as to who should stand here and who should sit there. Then, looking up to where the organ stood, he shouted, "We are ready. Play." No one in the church would ever forget the music that came from the organ that day, for who was the organist but jolly Friar Tuck? He struck more wrong notes than would a mouse running up and down the keyboard. Robin had to turn around to hide his smiles. Twitters of laughter came from the guests, but the bishop, already out of temper, said not a word. Instead, he opened his thick book to begin the ceremony. Then bold Robin ran up the aisle, and, forcing his way between Ellen and the knight, cried out in a ringing voice, "Stop! Marriages are supposed to be made in heaven, but this wedding seems like devil's work." In the silence that followed, Ellen's glad sigh was clearly heard. The bishop, red in the face, shouted, "What does this mean, you saucy knave? You were supposed to play and sing." "Oh, if it's music you wish, then music you shall hear." And lifting his silver horn to his lips, Robin blew 3 loud blasts. In an instant, the church was filled with men in Lincoln green, the first being Allan a Dale, who rushed to his love and took her in his arms. "Robin Hood," breathed the bishop. "I should have known." "Now then," said Robin, with a broad grin, "we shall have a ceremony more to my liking, and, methinks, to the liking of this fair bride and this handsome youth." Ellen blushed, all smiles, while Allan beamed with joy. Seeing his daughter's happiness, Ellen's father now knew how wrong he had been to choose the old knight for her husband. He stood by the happy pair, ready to give his blessings. As for the knight, all he could manage to say was, "Farewell to all this madness," and he left the church as fast as his old legs could take him. But the bishop, who had been promised a fat fee to perform the ceremony, shouted to Robin, "Move from this place, villain, or I will see that thou art hanged from the gallows before sunset." "Quiet," roared Robin, "or in place of a wedding there will be a funeral, and it will be yours." With this, 60 bows strung with 60 arrows appeared from under the cloaks of 60 men in Lincoln Green. Looking up at the balcony, Robin called, "Now, good friar, come down and do thy holy work. Perform this blessed ceremony." So Friar Tuck joined the two lovers in matrimony. Robin played upon the harp and sang a pretty song. The merry men smiled broadly. Then Robin whispered to the angry bishop, "Did I not make thee a promise? I said that on this wedding day I would play and sing my song, and the bride would love the man she marries till the day she dies. Thou must keep thy promise as well. I will take the purse of gold." "Take my curses instead," cried the bishop. "Take death, then," said Robin calmly. "I have only to nod my head, and my men will shoot their arrows at thy heart." The bishop, clenching his fists in rage and frustration, dropped the purse at Robin's feet, turned about, and ran from the church. Then a mighty cheer arose from Robin Hood and his merry men. "Oh, Robin," said Allen, "how can I ever thank thee for all you have done?" "You are a good lad, Allen," said Robin, "and if it would please you and your bride, come and dwell in the greenwood, and be our singer of songs." One look at Ellen's face, and Allen knew his answer. "Good master," he said, "no one could be happier than I. Today the fairest maiden in all of England is mine, and now I will have the truest friends a man could wish for. Gladly shall I go with thee, and glad will be the song I sing." And so, indeed, they were. The end.